The re-entry heat was intense enough to make the cockpit glow, but Captain Marcus Vire didn't flinch. He was too focused on the controls of the battered scout craft, guiding it through a field of ionized dust that sparkled like fireworks in the upper atmosphere of Relvar 3. The ship groaned in protest, trailing sparks like a comet with a death wish. Your confidence in Terran engineering borders on foolishness, a voice chimed from the co-pilot seat, smooth-clipped and unmistakably not human. Marcus glanced sideways, his grip still firm on the control yoke. You mean that in the nicest way possible, right? The woman beside him, if you could call a 7-foot-tall alien with cyan skin, gold-flecked eyes, and braided hair that shimmered like polished obsidian a woman, in any typical human sense, rolled her eyes. I mean, you fly like you've got nothing to lose, and this bucket is barely space-worthy, she replied, tapping on a console with elegant clawed fingers. Also, you snore. That's unrelated, he muttered, but noted. Her name was Calith, first sentinel of the Illyri Ascendancy genetic heiress of House Drexen, elite diplomat warrior, and apparently a connoisseur of sarcasm. Their joint recon mission to Relvar 3 was supposed to be routine secure intel, assess threats, share mutual awkwardness across species lines, and go home. Nobody said anything about pirates, or the fact that Calith could recite 6 languages and still find time to roast his piloting skills every 20 minutes. You humans, she continued with mock disdain, have such uninspired names. Marcus, Jack, Luke. It's like you're named after axe handles or cereal brands. Hey, Marcus said, I'll have you know. Marcus was a name worn by emperors. Oh, excuse me, Calith said, sitting back with a grin that showed sharp white teeth. Emperors of ancient dirt kingdoms, no doubt. He couldn't help it. He laughed. The tension of atmospheric drop, impending danger, and her ridiculous confidence somehow melted under the weight of that grin. And she grinned like someone who'd been told she wasn't supposed to smile and decided to break the rules anyway. My name, she said suddenly, is older than your civilization. I'm not surprised, he replied. Most rocks are. Calith made a sound that might have been a chuckle or a mild threat. It's unpronounceable to humans, formed from resonance harmonics and genetic echo, not like your one-syllable baby noises. Baby noises, I'll have you know, I once recited an entire Hamlet soliloquy while being electrocuted. Did anyone ask you to? He raised an eyebrow. No, but I had a point to prove. Calith leaned toward him with something between mischief and challenge. By the sacred bindings of the Illyri, if a human ever spoke my true name without prompting correctly and with intention, I'd be honor-bound to bind with them for life. Marcus blinked. Wait, are you saying that if I guess your name, you'd have to marry me? It's not a joke, Terran. It's a cultural pact. Not legal in your systems, but irreversible to mine. He paused. Okay, but what if I accidentally say it? She laughed. Impossible. You don't even have the necessary vocal structures. Marcus grinned slowly. That sounds like a challenge. Before she could retort, the proximity alarm shrieked across the cockpit. Calith sat up, her humor instantly evaporating. Something's locking onto us, she said, voice tight. No IFF signal. No comms ping. It's hunting us. Pirates, Marcus asked, flipping switches. Or worse, some factions on Relvar still resist the accord. Her eyes narrowed. Gorgani raiders. Fantastic. And I left my I'm not worth looting sign at home. They dropped into a steep dive, the thrusters whining in protest. Below them, Relvar's surface unfolded scarred plains, jagged obsidian cliffs, and storm-racked deserts glowing faintly from volcanic deposits. Marcus gritted his teeth. Hold on. Gonna try something stupid. Calith didn't answer. She was already bracing. The ship skimmed low over the terrain, banking into a canyon crevice, so narrow it might as well have been traced with a knife. Debris scraped the wings. Sparks showered across the view shield. They're following? Calith growled, watching the sensors. Then let's give them something to chase. Marcus veered sharply into a rock archway. The pursuing ship clipped the edge, spiraled, and exploded against the cliffs in a glorious flash of fire and scrap. The cockpit was quiet for a long moment, only the hiss of cooling metal filling the space. Calith slowly unclenched her fists. That was reckless. Effective, he pointed out. Also insane. Also accurate. Silence settled between them, only now a different kind, heavier, more charged. Marcus let out a slow breath. So, about that name thing. Her gaze met his unreadable. What about it? I wasn't joking earlier. I've heard a lot of alien phonetics. I studied field linguistics before I joined the Corps. Resonance tones, subharmonics. You'd be surprised what I can mimic. Caliph stared. You're not seriously. He closed his eyes, concentrated, and then did something no human in the history of either civilization had managed. He sang not with words but with pure tonal modulation, a layered harmonic hum, low and rising, laced with ethereal vibrations that echoed across frequencies humans shouldn't access. It was like starlight made sound woven from breath and memory. When it ended, the silence returned, this time brittle and stunned. Caliph's mouth parted slightly. Her skin shimmered with a flush of pale silver blue, and her hands trembled just enough for him to notice. That, she whispered, that was my name, my true name. How? Marcus shrugged lightly. I heard it once, a trade summit, 10 months ago. You were speaking during a blessing ritual. It stuck with me. You remembered it. He smiled. I didn't want to forget. For the first time since their mission began, Caliph looked completely off balance. Not angry, not flustered, just shaken. You have no idea what you've done. Guess I do now. Outside, the Relvar sun dipped low, casting golden light through the cockpit. Inside, two people who'd spent weeks circling each other now sat with a bond none of them had intended, but neither could deny. Finally, Caliph spoke again, her voice soft. You're bound to me now, Marcus Vire. By my people's law, by ancient right, for life. He leaned back and smirked. So, do I get a ring or just eternal diplomatic complications? Marcus didn't fully grasp the gravity of what he'd done until Caliph stopped speaking. She wasn't glaring, wasn't snapping off a sharp retort or throwing some dignified alien insult his way. Instead, she just stared at him, and that terrified him more than the Gorgani ships they'd just dodged. So, this binding thing, he started cautiously. How irreversible are we talking? Caliph blinked slowly, her golden-flecked eyes unreadable. There is no unbinding. It is encoded into our biological, emotional, and she gave a vague wave of her fingers, cultural systems. When you spoke my name, something inside me shifted. It felt like a lock being turned. Marcus swallowed hard. So what you're saying is, we're space married. She exhaled slowly, then reached for a side panel and flipped open a drawer with practiced aggression. From it, she withdrew a small handheld scanner and pointed it at her chest. The device hummed, emitted 3 soft chimes, and then displayed a glowing glyph in the air between them. That's... New Caliph muttered, staring at the symbol. Marcus squinted. Looks like a tree had a love child with a tuning fork. That's my binding mark, she said. It means the resonance has been accepted and reciprocated. Oh, reciprocated, huh? So you're saying I charmed you. Her look could have frozen plasma. You memorized my name, she said tightly. Most people can't even hear it without neural fatigue. I've been told I have excellent ears, Marcus quipped before immediately regretting it. Caliph ignored him, tapping at the scanner, her brows furrowed. This was not supposed to happen, especially not now. Okay, yeah, Marcus said, running a hand through his hair. Let's talk about now, because I think our ride just fried its primary fuel cell during that canyon stunt. She checked the readings, then offered a terse nod. You are correct. The primary reactor is failing. Well, good news, Marcus said, drumming his fingers on the dashboard. That means we're stuck together on a hostile planet, in a downed scout ship, while pirates are probably triangulating our position. Caliph tilted her head. You forgot biologically bonded across species lines in violation of at least 9 diplomatic protocols. Right, that too. A heavy silence filled the cockpit again. Outside, Relvar's triple moons began to rise, one emerald green, the others dusky orange. The wind howled through the rock canyons beyond. Caliph finally stood, her lean frame unfolding like a spring blade, graceful despite the low ceiling. We need to find shelter. The ship's integrity won't last through another sand squall. Marcus followed her lead, slinging a tactical pack over his shoulder and grabbing 2 emergency rations. And I take it you've got the marriage survival manual somewhere in that suit of yours. She paused, glanced back, and gave him a small, sharp smile. We don't write manuals, we improvise. They trekked across broken terrain under the ghostly light of Relvar's moons, the landscape a collage of jagged stone and deep, rust-colored sand. Caliph led the way, moving like a shadow through the darkness. Marcus kept pace, occasionally muttering to himself when his boots hit loose scree. Is now a bad time to ask what your people do on their honeymoon? He asked between breaths. Caliph didn't turn around. It varies. Sometimes there are combat trials. Oh, good, he said. My favorite kind of bonding. Eventually they reached a natural crevice, a small cave nestled beneath an overhang of basalt, the rock still warm from the day's sun. Inside, the air was dry and surprisingly temperate. Caliph scanned the space, then nodded. It will suffice. Marcus collapsed onto a rock with an exaggerated sigh. 10 out of 10. Would honeymoon here again? She pulled something from her satchel, a small fist-sized orb, and twisted it. The orb unfolded like petals, revealing a soft blue glow that illuminated the cave. Not harsh, but gentle. Calming. Marcus's voice softened. That's beautiful. It's a veil lumen, she said. It helps regulate body rhythms during sleep, especially after traumatic bonding events. He raised an eyebrow. You consider this traumatic? She looked at him for a moment, then sat down across from him, legs crossed. It's not how I imagined it. But no, not traumatic. Something in her voice made Marcus pause. The bravado slipped and he saw the person beneath the armor, the burden she carried, the cost of her status. I didn't mean to screw up your future, he said quietly. Caliph stared at the glowing orb. You didn't. You changed it. I'm not sure if that's worse or better. Silence again, but it wasn't uncomfortable anymore. Just thick with unspoken things. Marcus dug out a ration bar, unwrapped it, and offered half to her. True snack. She took it without comment, biting into it and immediately grimacing. What is this dry adhesive protein chocolate caramel? Your species is tragic, he laughed, and yet here we are, fatefully bonded by sound waves and sarcasm. She let out something that might have been a laugh, or a cough, or both. Then something shifted. Marcus noticed her eyes unfocused slightly, like she was listening to something beyond the cave. He reached for his blaster instinctively. Caliph held up a hand, eyes narrowing. Someone's out there. Friends or foes, I don't have any friends on this planet. Same, he said, rising. She crept toward the mouth of the cave, moving in utter silence. Marcus followed behind, blaster drawn. Outside, the wind had picked up again, stirring dust into shimmering vortices under the moons. Then movement, a shimmer across the rocks like heat mirage. But it was too precise, too deliberate. Cloak tech, Caliph murmured. Definitely Gorgani, Marcus cursed. They must have tracked the energy discharge from the pod. She glanced back at him. Can you shoot straight, lady? I was born shooting. Then don't miss. They moved in tandem like clockwork. Caliph's energy blade flared to life in a whisper of violet light, while Marcus used the rock face as cover, picking off advancing silhouettes as their cloaks failed under the dust. The fight was short but brutal. By the end of it, 5 bodies smoldered near the cave, and Marcus was breathing hard, arm nicked, shirt singed. Caliph approached, wiping her blade clean on a scrap of Gorgani armor. You're bleeding. Only a little. She examined his wound anyway, her fingers cool against his skin. Your biology heals faster under stress, she noted, but you still need rest. Marcus watched her, watching him. You always this tender with your soul bound. She didn't answer directly. Just finished bandaging his arm with a strip from her cloak, then leaned in close enough for him to feel her breath. You're not what I expected, Marcus Vire. He swallowed. Yeah, and what did you expect? Caliph's smile was faint. Someone who wouldn't change everything in one moment, with one word. They stayed like that for a moment longer, close, uncertain, on the edge of something neither of them had signed up for. Then the comm on Marcus's belt beeped. He checked it. Signal from orbit, emergency transmission. There's movement at the Accord outpost in Sector 9. Looks like they're under siege. Kayla straightened. That's where we were meant to deliver the intel package. And the outpost got our backup transport. She looked at him, eyes flashing with something unreadable. You ready for part 2 of our honeymoon, he asked, already slinging on his gear. Kayla sighed. Only if there's more terrible chocolate involved. Always. Together they stepped out into the night again. 2 soldiers, 2 species, and one wildly accidental bond walking straight into the unknown. The wind on Relvar was different in the early morning, hotter, laced with static. It hissed across the volcanic plain as Caleth and Marcus crept through the jagged terrain, staying low, watching the distant glow of plasma fire light up the horizon where the Accord outpost burned. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow. That's not the welcoming committee I was hoping for. Your species has strange standards, Caleth muttered, adjusting the scope of her rifle. Do you usually expect fireworks when you arrive somewhere? Only on dates. This is not a date. You're wearing battle armor and I'm bleeding from 3 places. It's basically a Terran blind date. Caleth exhaled through her nose, but he caught the ghost of a smirk. Then her expression turned sharp as her eyes locked on something ahead. There, she said. See the ridge flanking position. If we get to the tower undetected, we can override the security locks and access the command systems. That's where the communications uplink is. Marcus squinted at the structure, half shrouded in smoke. I love it when you talk tech. She ignored him, already moving like liquid through the terrain. He followed boots crunching ash and gravel. The deeper they went, the more twisted the battlefield became, craters, still smoking fragments of mechs and drones, strewn like metallic skeletons. In the distance, he spotted the signature red glyphs of Gorgani war clans scrawled in blood against the outpost walls. They wanted to make a point, Marcus said grimly. They always do. Genetically spliced egos and no respect for treaties. Kayla's voice had gone cold-clipped. The part of her that had softened the night before was buried under layers of tactical focus. Still, as they neared the tower's base, Marcus saw her reach up to touch the symbol glowing faintly on her collarbone, the one tied to their soul binding, as if checking to make sure it was still there, still real. Feeling okay, he asked. She glanced at him. Just different. Marcus tilted his head. Different, how Caleth hesitated. More aware of you, your pulse, your emotions. I can feel them low-level resonance hum beneath everything. Marcus blinked. Wait, you can feel what I feel? Not exactly, not thoughts, just echoes. When you're scared, when you're focused, when you're making jokes to cover fear. She paused. I feel those most often. Well, that's mildly terrifying. For both of us. They shared a look. It wasn't romantic, not entirely, not yet, but it carried a gravity that hadn't existed 24 hours ago. One that made him suddenly protective. Sharply so. Movement ahead. Caleth held up a fist. They ducked into the ruins of a transport bay as 2 Gorgani scouts passed, their exosuits glinting with obsidian plating. One of them paused, sniffing the air. Marcus tensed. Caleth pulled something from her belt, a small puck-like device, and hurled it behind the scouts. It clicked once, twice, and then exploded in a puff of phosphorescent mist. The Gorgani swore in their guttural dialect and spun toward the distraction. As they moved, Caleth sprang from cover like lightning blade, igniting midair. Marcus was only a beat behind, dropping the second with 2 clean shots. When the brief chaos settled, Marcus exhaled. That's teamwork. Caleth nodded, expression unreadable. You're not bad for a sentient meat stick. Ah, you're flirting. We're bonded. I don't need to flirt. That's what makes it worse, Marcus said, grinning. Inside the tower, the air was thick with smoke and ozone. Broken terminals sparked as they ascended a maintenance ladder to the command node. Caleth worked fast fingers, dancing over alien interface panels with familiarity. Marcus watched her admiration rising. Ever think of going rogue? You could make a killing as a slicer. Illegal, she replied without looking up, but efficient. Also true. Moments later, the uplink lit green. A low hum filled the chamber as the relay array aligned and locked onto an open channel. This is First Sentinel Caleth of the Illyria Ascendancy, she said into the mic, her voice suddenly command-level sharp. Outpost 9 has been compromised. Confirming Gorgani incursion. requesting immediate extraction and reinforcements. 2 bonded personnel on site with high-value intel, and 1 she hesitated, unique biological anomaly, pending confirmation. Marcus's brows lifted. Is that what I am now, a unique anomaly? Not you, Caleth muttered. Something in her voice made his stomach twist. Then the comms unit crackled. Copy that, Sentinel. Extraction vessel rerouted to your position. ETA 23 minutes. Prepare for hostiles. Gorgony forces are converging. The line cut. Caleth stood back, face tense. What aren't you telling me? Marcus asked. She hesitated, then reached for her scanner again and passed it slowly over her own abdomen. His heart stopped. No, he whispered. Already it's not supposed to happen this fast, she said, voice trembling slightly. Even with our physiology, even with the binding, this is accelerated. There was no time for fertilization, but the scan confirms resonance-based cell fusion, conception through soul bonding. Marcus stared. You're telling me we just from Caleth looked away? Yes. My people have theories, some cases in ancient history, but never with a human. He didn't know what to say or what to feel. Shock, awe, horror. Then absurdly he laughed. Marcus, this isn't funny. No, I know. He rubbed his face. It's just, yesterday I was worrying about running out of water rations. Now I'm about to be a dad to a half-alien, soul-linked miracle baby. Caleth stared at him like he'd cracked, but he stepped closer, placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Are you okay with this? She nodded slowly. I'm overwhelmed, but I don't regret it. You're not what I expected. But you're not what I feared either. He grinned. That's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Before she could respond, the tower shook violently. A shock wave blew out the eastern wall and hurled them both across the floor. Marcus landed hard, skidding behind a pile of broken crates. Alarms screamed. The floor groaned beneath them, and through the smoke he saw shadows moving, more Gorgani, this time heavily armed. He pulled Caleth to her feet. Time for that extraction. Back route, she shouted over the noise. Service tunnel, go. They ran, bodies, aching lungs, burning through collapsing hallways and dim passageways until the roar of engines grew louder overhead. The shuttle screamed down from the clouds, engines glowing, blue side hatch already open. Caleth reached back to cover Marcus as he climbed her blade, spinning in a blur. Then she leapt after him as the hatch slammed shut. The pilot shouted over his shoulder. We're not safe yet. Fighters incoming. Caleth and Marcus barely had time to catch their breath as the shuttle veered skyward, Gorgani interceptors lighting up the skies behind them. Marcus slumped against the bulkhead, panting, then looked at her. Well, that was eventful. Caleth didn't smile, didn't speak, just leaned her head against the wall, eyes closed. He reached out and took her hand. This time she didn't pull away. The shuttle screamed through Relvar's upper atmosphere, dodging plasma fire like a drunk insect on turbo boosters. Marcus gripped the overhead rail, his boots barely grounded, as inertia tried to yank him off his feet. The air smelled like scorched metal and panic. Evasive pattern gamma, the pilot barked. They're on our tail. Caleth was already in the co-pilot's seat, strapping in and keying into the weapons array. Her fingers moved like she wasn't just fluent in this interface, she spoke its language. A sleek Gorgani Hunter-class ship appeared in the rear view display, fast and sleek, its plasma cannons charging up. Marcus cursed. Can't we just send them a wedding invitation and hope for the best? Caleth didn't even blink. Your humor becomes less helpful the closer we are to dying. You'd think after bonding with me, you'd find it charming. No, I feel the urge to punch you now more than ever. It's how I know the link is working. A plasma bolt zipped past the starboard wing, and the shuttle lurched violently. Alarms howled. Marcus slammed into the bulkhead and bounced off with a grunt. Caleth growled something in Illyri, probably an ancient curse involving eels, and jammed the throttle forward. The shuttle spun into a sharp roll, diving hard. The Gorgani ship followed, trying to lock on. Marcus staggered toward the aft gunner's console. I'm not great with Illyri tech. You only have to hit something, Marcus. That's literally your specialty. I feel so appreciated. He powered up the rear turret. It whirred to life, a sleek crescent of death that turned with a sharp hiss. The targeting system blinked through the cloud cover. He narrowed his eyes, waiting for the Gorgani ship to line up just right. Come on, come on. A beep, a lock. He squeezed the trigger. Twin bolts of raw plasma rocketed from the turret. One missed. The second clipped the Gorgani engine nacelle, and the hunter ship spun into a tailspin, crashing in a plume of flame somewhere below. The shuttle whooped with its own automated cheer. Marcus whooped louder. Kaleth gave him a sideways glance. You're dangerously overconfident. Dangerously handsome too, but we don't have time to unpack all my flaws right now. The pilot finally leveled the shuttle into stable flight. We're clear. Docking at Sentinel Station in 20 minutes. Somebody warned Medbay our guests look like they walked out of a minefield. Marcus leaned back and let himself breathe for the first time in hours. His body throbbed. His shoulder ached. His ribs felt like a committee had debated each one before bruising them. And Kaleth, she wasn't moving. She sat rigid, her gaze forward but unfocused. You okay? He asked quietly. I can feel something shifting. Marcus frowned. What kind of shifting? Kaleth touched her abdomen, her palm flat over the still glowing glyph of the binding mark. The resonance is deepening. I didn't expect it to grow this fast. Marcus sat beside her slower, now more careful. You're not alone in this, Kale. I didn't choose this either, but I'm in. Whatever this turns into, I'm not running. She looked at him and something vulnerable slipped through the cracks of her warrior's mask. I've always followed the expectations of my house, my command, my lineage, but no one prepared me for you. That's what I do. Ruin alien women's 5-year plans. A breath escaped her, not a laugh, but close. The silence was brief, because that's when the shuttle's emergency lights flared crimson. The pilot cursed. Incoming transport, no recognition codes. And it's not Gorgani. Marcus leaned over to look at the display. Then who the hell? Kaleth answered grimly. It's Aeleri, high-caste command ship, House Drexen Crest. Marcus stared. Your people, she nodded, voice low. My father's ship. Oh, great. We're getting in-laws involved now. The incoming vessel hailed them before they could respond. A cold, crisp voice filled the shuttle's speakers. This is Archduke Silen of House Drexen. By decree of the High Council, First Sentinel, Kaleth is to be transferred into our custody immediately. Terran operative Marcus Vire will remain aboard the shuttle. Kaleth's hand curled into a fist. They knew. They've been monitoring the bond signature. Wait, Marcus said. They knew what this meant, and they let you go anyway. Kaleth's jaw clenched. They were testing me, seeing if the Terran would do it, if I would let him. Well, surprise, Dad. The shuttle pilot looked back nervously. Orders, ma'am. Kaleth didn't answer. She stared out the viewport as the enormous gleaming Aeleri cruiser loomed ahead, its surface patterned with ancient runes and docking claws unfolding. Then she stood. No, she said. Marcus blinked. No transfer. No custody. They don't get to control this. You sure? He asked, rising slowly. Because I'm pretty sure that ship has enough firepower to atomize us. Kaleth's eyes gleamed. Let them try. Okay, he said. Crazy is officially hot now. The shuttle veered away from the Aeleri cruiser, breaking the docking trajectory. Predictably, the cruiser issued another warning. Final notice, surrender the Sentinel. You are in breach of interstellar protocol. Kaleth keyed open the comm and responded calmly. This is Kaleth of House Drexen. You forfeited my obedience the moment you turned my life into a test. I will not be your prototype. I am bound. I chose. She ended the transmission. A long pause followed. Then the cruiser backed off. No attack. No retaliation. They didn't fire, Marcus whispered. Kaleth nodded slowly. They never wanted war. Only leverage. But I burned the contract before they could sign it. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone not just powerful, but free. And for the first time since this insane adventure began, he understood just how much she'd given up. You really picked me, he said almost in disbelief. She turned toward him, gaze steady. I didn't expect to. But you guessed my name. You made me laugh during combat. You covered me in a collapsing hallway and then handed me chocolate. It was a risk. And now, Calith said, leaning in, just a breath closer. I don't regret it. The shuttle docked at Sentinel Station not long after. Medical teams rushed aboard, patching Marcus and running advanced resonance scans on Calith. The techs blinked at the results, exchanged whispers, but said nothing aloud. Rumors traveled faster than speed limits. They were shown to private quarters, temporary quiet, full of humming lights and sterile air. Marcus slumped onto the cot with a groan. Do you think your dad's still fuming? I think, Calith said, peeling off her armor. He's finally realized I'm not someone who follows paths. I make them. Marcus looked up. You know that's insanely attractive. You think everything is insanely attractive. Correction. Only you. Calith tilted her head, watching him. There is one thing I've been wondering. What's that? What happens if I guess your true name? Marcus blinked. What? She leaned in, and for once her smile was slow. Dangerous. You have one, don't you? Something your people don't share. A name you only give once. It's Muffin, he said deadpan. Commander Marcus Muffin Vire. She burst into laughter, a sound that made the lights in the room flicker from her resonance spike. And in that moment, amid war politics, soul bonds, and incoming madness, they forgot just for a while how badly things could go. Because for once, things finally felt right. The morning on Sentinel Station didn't come with sunlight. It came with diagnostics reports, data transfers, and the smell of sterilized circuits. Marcus had barely opened his eyes before a voice buzzed in through the intercom, like a drill sergeant with bad manners. Commander Vire, Sentinel Council requests your presence in Chamber Theta 3. Urgent, Marcus rolled over, groaning. What time is it? Calith, already dressed in a sleek, deep blue uniform that hugged her frame like second skin, answered without looking up. 0600, Terran Standard. You're alarmingly awake for someone who nearly got vaporized yesterday. I'm Ailery. We regenerate quickly. Marcus sat up, rubbing his eyes. Great. I regenerate with coffee. They walked together toward Theta 3 through the gleaming corridors of the station. Officers nodded to Calith with deference, then shot confused stares at Marcus, some of them even whispering. Are they always this subtle, he asked. They're wondering why a bonded Illyri warrior is still standing next to her. Terran consort, Calith said without looking at him. Marcus paused. Consort? It's the polite term. What's the impolite one? She gave him a look that made his ears warm. Theta 3 was built like a tribunal chamber, tiered seating, a central platform, and a panoramic viewport showing Relvar still smoldering in orbit. At the center stood a woman in a long white coat with silver threads laced through it like circuitry. She was flanked by two medtechs and a towering envoy droid. Dr. Vexira Mel Calith whispered. Head of Applied Xenogenics. Marcus frowned. I don't like anyone whose title includes the word applied and genics in the same sentence. Dr. Mel turned as they entered. Her face was calm, unreadable, but her eyes gleamed with sharp intellect. Ah, our miracle pair has arrived, Marcus muttered. That's not a nickname I asked for. Captain Vire. First Sentinel Calith, the doctor began. Thank you for coming. We've analyzed the binding phenomenon and, well, you've upended half a decade of genetic and diplomatic theory. Calith crossed her arms. We're aware. You're pregnant, Mel continued bluntly. The gestation is developing at an impossible rate. Not just rapid cell division, it's adaptive convergence. Your DNA is rewriting itself around the resonance. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Rewriting Mel turned to a nearby display. A hologram bloomed between them, a pulsing cluster of cells glowing with intertwined Illyri and human genetic signatures overlaid with harmonic fields. See this, she pointed. That's not just hybrid compatibility, that's synthesis. At the molecular level, you're not just carrying a child Calith, you're incubating the first fully stable cross-species fusion, with traits from both lineages that have never coexisted before. Calith's voice was steady. What kind of traits neural interface density beyond any recorded levels, Mel said. Resonance-linked empathy, potential trans-kinetic sensory input, maybe even early cognitive development. Marcus blinked. Wait, did you just say the baby might have psychic powers? Yes, Mel said, among other things. Caliph stared at the hologram. And what does your council plan to do with this information? Mel hesitated, then chose her words too carefully. Protect it, study it, ensure safety. Marcus snorted. Right, which is polite science speak for contain and dissect it? No one's talking about dissection, Mel said, visibly annoyed. But this development affects more than just you two. If hostile governments discover what's growing in your womb, they'll want to control it. Or kill it, and that includes both human and Illyri factions. Because nothing says peace like panic-driven eugenics, Marcus muttered. Caliph turned to him. We need to leave. Mel's voice sharpened. If you run, you'll be hunted. If we stay, Caliph shot back, our child becomes property. The room went quiet. Finally, Dr. Mel sighed. I'll give you 12 hours. After that, I'm required to report your location. Marcus nodded. That's the most generous threat I've ever gotten. Thanks. Back in their quarters, Caliph paced like a cage storm. We'll need a ship, she said, unmarked, capable of stealth, and fuel to make it past the rim. You have contacts here, I have leverage. It's not the same thing. Marcus checked the security feed. You sure you're up for this? You look strained, she finished. I was going to say glowing, but yeah, strained works. Caliph stopped. Her hand drifted to her stomach. The resonance is affecting more than just the fetus. It's bleeding into me. I can feel everything. You, the station, the field harmonics outside. It's like hearing 1,000 whispers in a quiet room. Marcus approached carefully. Is that dangerous? Not yet, she whispered. But it's growing. They were inches apart now. He rested his forehead against hers. We'll get out. We'll raise this kid somewhere quiet. Weird. Peaceful. Caliph let out a small, shaky laugh. No place that has all three of those things exists. We'll make one. A chime interrupted them, an encrypted message blinking on the screen. Caliph opened it. Her jaw tightened. What is it? Marcus asked. It's from Ralvin. Marcus frowned. Your brother, the diplomat. She nodded slowly. He's sending coordinates, telling us to meet him on Veshtan 9. Marcus pulled up the nav chart. That's deep in neutral space. Remote. No signal relays. Exactly, Kayla said. It might be a trap, or it might be the only family you've got who hasn't tried to kidnap you yet. She gave him a grim look. Let's hope that holds true. They began packing. Marcus gathered medkits and weaponry. Caliph loaded resonance stabilizers and shielding nodes into their portable field generator. Her movements were quick but measured, like a soldier who'd been preparing for exile since childhood. 12 hours. They had one shot. Later, aboard the stolen courier ship, a rusted beast named Quiet Gamble, they slipped past the outer perimeter of Sentinel Station under forged codes and a borrowed transponder. Marcus sat in the cockpit, watching the stars stretch into long lines as they entered faster than light travel. Beside him, Caliph finally let herself rest her head, slumping against the padded headrest. You're still glowing, he whispered. I'm still terrified. He reached for her hand. Same. For a while, the hum of the engines was all that filled the space. Then Caliph spoke again, her voice soft but laced with iron. If Ralvin turns on us, I'll kill him. I'll bring snacks, Marcus replied. Nothing worse than fratricide on an empty stomach. She looked over at him, and this time when she smiled, it wasn't shadowed by fear. It was real. The stars rushed by and their child stirred within her, more than a heartbeat now, more than potential. A future, one they'd fight for. Together. Veshtan 9 was an ugly planet. It didn't have the decency to pretend otherwise. Its surface was an endless stretch of windswept salt plains and cracked glass rock, all under a perpetually violet sky that never looked quite real. Atmospheric interference scrambled long-range comms, and the nearest civilized outpost was a pirate-run trade hub 2 light-years away. Perfect for disappearances or ambushes. Marcus stepped off the ramp of the Quiet Gamble, with one hand on his sidearm and the other shielding his eyes from the sharp, dry wind. You sure this is the right place? He muttered. Caliph adjusted the hood of her cloak, her face partially hidden beneath it. The coordinates were specific, and encrypted using a code only my brother and I know. Marcus glanced around. Funny I don't see a loving family reunion anywhere. He's a Lyrie high caste, she said, scanning the horizon. They don't do hugs. Right. They do assassination attempts with wine in a monologue. Kalith didn't laugh, though the corner of her mouth twitched. She was moving slower than usual, her steps' careful posture tight. The pregnancy had advanced again, subtly but visibly. Her armor had been modified to accommodate the change, but it still didn't hide the strain in her gait. Still feeling everything, Marcus asked quietly. Kalith nodded. Everything. Even the planet. The minerals in the soil have a frequency. I can feel them humming. He frowned. That sounds exhausting. It is. They walked in silence for another few hundred meters before reaching what looked like a cave carved into the side of a jagged cliff. Two figures waited at the entrance, one tall and lean, in ceremonial Illyri robes, the other a heavily armed escort with a helmet obscuring their face. Ralvin Kalith said flatly. The tall figure stepped forward and pulled down his hood. His features were unmistakably related, angular cheekbones, gold-flecked eyes, and the same obsidian hair, though his bore strands of ceremonial silver. Sister, he said with a formal nod. You look radiant. Kalith narrowed her eyes. You look like someone with an agenda. Marcus muttered, oh yeah, definitely related. Ralvin ignored him. I assume this is the Terran. The father, Marcus Vire. Marcus said, officially unarmed, unofficially annoyed. Ralvin raised an eyebrow. Charming, but not relevant. Come inside. We have much to discuss. They followed him into the cave. The entrance gave way to a surprisingly sophisticated hideout, shielded with resonance dampeners and powered by geothermal conduits. It had the feel of a private sanctuary built by someone who expected betrayal from every direction. So Kalith said as they entered the main chamber. What is this A-Trap A lecture? Another attempt to convince me to give up the child, Ralvin turned slowly. It's none of those. It's a warning. He tapped a control pad and a hologram shimmered into view above the stone table. A star map pulsed in the air, with a dozen red markers blinking in proximity to Sentinel territory. Your escape made noise, he said. Your departure from the station, the refusal of House Drexen to retrieve you, it created a vacuum. Now others want to fill it. Factions from both our worlds are mobilizing. Kalith's jaw tightened. Mobilizing for what, to capture you, Ralvin said, looking directly at her. And your child. Marcus stepped forward. We already knew people would come after us. You knew some would, Ralvin replied. You didn't realize how many. Terran intelligence. Rogue ascendancy branches. The coalition of exogenesis. Even Draxian loyalists. They all want what you're carrying. Kalith folded her arms. So what's your plan? Ralvin looked at her, his expression softening. To get you out. For good. There's a corridor through the Kalari expanse. A pirate queen I know owes me a favor. She can get you to the far rings. No jurisdiction, no surveillance. You can vanish. Marcus blinked. Wait. You're helping us, Ralvin met Kalith's gaze. You're my sister. I may not agree with what you've done, but I won't let others decide your fate. Kalith's voice dropped. Why now? Ralvin didn't answer immediately. Then he glanced toward the other armored figure in the room. The escort removed their helmet. Kalith's breath caught. Marcus looked between them, confused. Should I be worried? The woman who'd removed the helmet looked Illyri, but her features were softer, different. Her skin tone a few shades off Kalith's, and her eyes lacked the traditional gold flecks. She's Kalith began, then stopped. Ralvin nodded. My daughter. Kalith blinked. You had a hybrid. She's half Relari, he said quietly. It was hidden, buried, disavowed by the council. I never told anyone, until now. Marcus whistled. And I thought we had complicated family dinners. Ralvin stepped closer to his niece, placing a hand on her shoulder. She was the reason I didn't turn you in. Because I know what it's like to have a child who doesn't fit the mold, and how easy it is for people in power to decide their lives are worth less than their potential. Kalith looked at the girl, then at her brother. You risked everything. I'd do it again. The silence that followed was filled with unspoken emotion, echoes of a history Marcus didn't fully understand, but respected. Then the alert sirens blared. Ralvin's head snapped toward the console. They're here! Faster than I expected. Kaleth's hand went to her blade. Ralvin checked the scanners. Multiple ships. No official codes. I'd bet anything it's the coalition of exogenesis. They move like vultures with high-tech feathers. Marcus already had his blaster drawn. So much for a quiet visit. Ralvin looked at him. You'll have to fight your way to the corridor. I'll hold them off. Kaleth shook her head. You can't fight them alone. Watch me. She hesitated, then reached out and grabbed his hand. I won't forget this, she said. I hope not. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. But something passed between them, stronger than blood, forged by risk, hardened by choice. Marcus, Kaleth, and Ralvin's daughter sprinted for the exit tunnel. Explosions rocked the hideout as they reached the rear passage, the ceiling raining dust and heat. Behind them, Ralvin's last message crackled through Kaleth's comm. Run, sister. Write your own story. Kaleth didn't look back. By the time they reached the stolen transport buried beneath the salt flats, the air was thick with fire. Kaleth stumbled once Marcus caught her before she hit the ground. You good? He asked. She gritted her teeth. Contractions? Mild. False start. Oh, great, he muttered. The baby's got dramatic timing. Inside the cockpit, Ralvin's daughter activated the launch sequence. Marcus threw the coordinates into the nav system. The ship trembled as it tore free from the ground and into the sky. Kaleth sat in the co-pilot seat, hand on her stomach, face pale. Still with me? Marcus asked gently. Kaleth nodded, then looked at him. I think the baby's hearing you. When you speak, it reacts. Marcus blinked. What, like kicks when I say dumb things? No, she said softly. It calms down. He leaned over and kissed her temple. Then I'll keep talking. Outside, the storm of fire and betrayal faded behind them. Ahead was only space and the unknown. But this time they weren't running from something. They were racing towards something new. The stars over the Kellery expanse shimmered like broken glass, millions of pinpricks scattered across the void, warped by gravitational currents and stellar debris. The stolen transport coasted silently through the narrow passage between patrol lanes, its transponder mast hull coated in scrambled reflection fields. Marcus sat in the captain's seat, eyes locked on the long-range scanners. Nothing yet. But silence never lasted. Behind him, Kaleth was trying to sleep. She'd curled on the padded bench in the med bay, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. Their child, was growing faster than anyone could have predicted. Her body had adapted, but even she had limits, and they were rapidly approaching them. Marcus stood and crossed the short corridor to her side, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. He sat beside her, resting his hand gently on the curve of her stomach. The resonance pulsed faintly beneath her skin. Warm, alive. A rhythm now so familiar it hummed in his bones. You're still talking to my belly, she murmured without opening her eyes. I'm running out of material, he whispered. I already did the story about the space cow who couldn't moo. Kaleth cracked an eye. That one made the child hiccup. Best review I've had all year. She reached up and took his hand, lacing her fingers with his. We're close. I can feel it. The border to the far rings. We'll make it, he said. Your niece is a hell of a pilot. She prefers the term interstellar escape enthusiast. Marcus grinned, but the smile faded quickly as the comms console chimed. A priority signal, unidentified vessel on intercept course. He stood, kissed her forehead, and slipped back into the cockpit. Ralvin's daughter Nira was already reading the telemetry. No signature, she said. But it's fast. Too fast for a pirate. And it's masking better than military standard. Marcus stared at the screen. The ship was gaining, clearly tracking them, despite every stealth countermeasure. Wake her, he said. We've got company. By the time Kaleth joined them, the enemy ship was within striking distance. It's not coalition, she said, watching the pattern of its approach. They don't fly that clean. Marcus gritted his teeth. So who? The comms burst to life. A voice came through, sharp, rich, and unmistakably familiar. This is Commander Vel Orin of the Terran Strategic Initiative. Marcus Vire, you are ordered to power down your vessel and surrender. Marcus's blood went cold. Kaleth's eyes narrowed. You know him? Marcus swallowed. He was my mentor, my CO in Special Ops. The voice continued calm and cruel. You are harboring classified biological material. You are in violation of cross-species containment protocols and multiple interstellar treaties. Stand down or be engaged. Caliph stepped forward. They think I'm a weapon. You are, Marcus said softly. To people like Orin, anything they can't control is a threat. Nira cursed. They're charging weapons. I can lose them in the asteroid trench, but we'll only get one shot. Do it, Marcus said. The ship veered, dropping into the jagged maze of the Kalari Trench. Massive rocks and magnetic fragments swirled in erratic paths, tearing apart anything careless. Marcus and Caliph strapped in as G-forces twisted the hull. The enemy ship followed. They're matching us, Nira growled. Marcus turned to Caliph. I have an idea, but you're not gonna like it. She gave him a dry look. I haven't liked anything this week. We bait them with the resonance. Caliph blinked. What they're here for the child. We leak a narrowband pulse, make them think we're ejecting a pod. They'll go after it. Then we loop wide and jump. Caliph stared at him. If you're wrong, they'll just fire on us anyway. He touched her cheek gently. If I'm wrong, they were going to fire either way. Nira didn't wait for permission, sending a fake resonance pulse now. Spooling drive. Get ready. Outside, the decoy pod launched just a thermal shell with a resonant frequency recorded from Caliph's biometrics. The enemy ship pivoted hard, targeting it. They bought it, Nira breathed. Now Marcus shouted. The engines roared. The stolen transport dove slingshotting around a magnetic cliff and up into open space. The jump course surged with energy, the stars stretching. Then everything stopped. An interdiction net snapped into place across the jump corridor. The ship groaned and dropped out of warp with a stomach-lurching jolt. No, Caliph whispered. The enemy ship reappeared instantly, weapons hot. A transmission crackled. Fool me once, Marcus Commander Oren said coldly, shame on me. Fool me twice, you die. Plasma cannons fired. The shields flared. Systems failed. Smoke filled the cockpit. Marcus staggered to Caliph, shielding her as the ship buckled under the barrage. But before it could break apart, a second ship dropped into real space behind them. Dark, sleek, silent. A single glyph on its hull glowed, a sun split by a spiral. Caliph's eyes widened. That's not possible. What is it? Marcus shouted over the alarms. She stared at the display. It's a Leary, but ancient. A rogue fleet. The new ship opened fire not on Marcus and Caliph's vessel, but on Commander Oren's. The Terran warship was caught off guard, struck clean across its engine core. A blinding explosion lit the void, and then there was silence. Marcus blinked. Did we just get rescued by space ghosts? The comms lit up again. A new voice. Female. Calm. Unfamiliar. Caliph of House Drexen. Marcus Vire of Terra. We are the wayfarers of Sunfall. Your child is under our protection now. Caliph frowned. How do you even know about we have watched? We have waited. The soul bond you formed was not an accident. The child you carry was always destined. Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine. That's not ominous at all. Prepare to dock, the voice said. You're running out of time. The transmission cut. Caliph looked at Marcus. Do we trust them? He hesitated. No, but we don't have a better option. The docking corridor extended. Caliph gripped his hand, and together they stepped into the unknown. The interior of the Wayfarer's vessel was unlike anything Marcus had seen. No bulkheads, no harsh lights. The corridors shimmered with pulsing resonance, organic architecture woven from some kind of crystalline lattice that responded to their presence. As Caliph stepped forward, the walls lit up in soft waves, mirroring the cadence of her heartbeat. Or perhaps the baby's. Behind them, the stolen transport detached and vanished into the void. Ahead, the corridor opened into a chamber that felt impossibly vast, like a planet's core, hollowed out and infused with starlight. In the center waited a single figure. She was tall, draped in robes that shimmered like molten dusk. Her skin was not Illyri, not human, somewhere in between. Her eyes glowed not from light but from memory. She smiled as they approached, her voice familiar, too familiar. You've felt me since the moment you bonded, she said. I am Theria, first of the bound, keeper of the Sunfall Seed. Caliph stared. You were in my dreams. Marcus frowned. You were in her what? Theria nodded. The soul bond opened a door not just between you, but across time, across all who have carried resonance. Marcus tightened his grip on Caliph's hand. Okay, you're going to need to slow down and explain why exactly people are firing plasma cannons over a baby. Theria gestured toward the center of the chamber, where a floating projection pulsed like a heartbeat. Because the child you carry is not just a genetic fusion, it is a convergence, a bridge between what was divided long ago. The projection shifted, showing visions of ancient times, Illyri and Terran ancestors not at war, but united. Then the fracture, conflict, erasure silence. This isn't about hybridization, Caliph whispered. It's about restoration. Correct, Theria said. Your bond was not coincidence. It was instinct returning to purpose. The universe does not forget what once worked. Marcus raised an eyebrow. So what we're chosen? No, Theria said with a faint smile. You chose. That's why it worked. You didn't follow a prophecy. You wrote your own. Caliph looked away, overwhelmed. But the child, she's growing too fast. My body. She is aligning with both of you. Her development follows resonance, not biology. She is nearly ready. Marcus froze. Wait. Now Caliph clutched her abdomen, wincing. It's starting. Theria stepped forward, her hands glowing with soft energy. There is a birthing chamber prepared. Safe. Attuned to her frequencies. Come. Everything moved fast after that. The chamber they were taken to was bathed in calming resonance, harmonic frequencies woven into the air itself. Caliph lay on a curved platform that shifted beneath her, adapting to her shape. Theria worked with surreal efficiency, her movements fluid and sure. Marcus sat beside Caliph, brushing her hair back, whispering to her, even when she gritted her teeth through wave after wave of pain. You've done impossible things, he said. Just do one more. Caliph's eyes were glassy with exhaustion, but she smiled. Impossible's easier with you around. Time became a blur, until a sound, a cry. Not loud, not weak, pure, resonant. Marcus turned and there she was. Theria placed the child gently on Caliph's chest, tiny, warm, with skin that shifted between golden and dusky blue, and wisps of hair that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes opened, human in shape, but glowing faintly. Watching, understanding. She knows us, Caliph whispered, tears in her voice. She feels us. She always did, Theria said softly. Her name is already part of the stars. Marcus stared, barely breathing. She's perfect. But then Theria's expression darkened. There is one more thing. They looked up. Now that she is born, others will feel the shift. Even now your enemies regroup. They will come. All of them. Then we run, Marcus said. We hide. Like before. No, Theria said gently. You can't. Not anymore. Her presence changes reality. Wherever you go, they will follow. Caliph's fingers curled around the child protectively. Then what do you expect us to do? Theria stepped back, revealing a glowing cradle, a resonance shell designed not for containment, but amplification. She must be shown to the galaxy, not as a weapon, not as a secret, but as a beginning. Marcus's jaw tightened. You want to make her a symbol? No, Theria said. You will, or you won't. That choice is yours. The silence that followed was heavier than any battlefield. Caliph looked down at her daughter, then at Marcus. Her voice trembled, but not with fear. I was born to follow, to obey, to serve ancient rules. She stood. But this child wasn't. Marcus rose beside her, wrapping an arm around them both. We'll face it together, he said. Whatever comes. Theria inclined her head. Then we'll stand with you. The wayfarers will reveal her to the accord, to the fringe, to all who would seek war or peace. Let them choose. The broadcast went out the next day, encrypted but impossible to suppress. It showed Caliph and Marcus standing side by side, their child held between them. No speeches, no declarations, just the truth, clear, undeniable, and alive. It shattered empires. Some governments called for war. Others called for alliance. But across the stars, something began to shift. Quietly, irrevocably. Hope. In a quiet part of space aboard a hidden wayfarer vessel, Caliph and Marcus lay together in a private chamber, lit only by the soft glow of starlight through curved crystal windows. Their daughter slept in a floating cradle nearby, bathed in harmonic light. Marcus turned to Caliph. So he murmured. Not exactly the honeymoon you expected. Caliph smiled faintly. You guessed my name. I bound my soul to a human. We broke 2 treaties and created a being of cosmic consequence. I'd call it a full week. He kissed her, and for once there were no alarms, no warships, no hidden agendas, just them, a Terran soldier, an Illyri sentinel, and a child born from resonance, not design, a future of their own making, together.